everyone, this is Homie and the Dude, the father and son podcast and gaming network, and today we're bringing you another D&D Diaries. As always, the way we're going to do it is tell you a little bit about our session and then give you some advice and tell you about what we learned and how it can maybe help you guys out with your dungeon mastering. So, we had a pirate ambush last time we talked.
A devastating defeat.
A very railroaded pirate ambush.
Yes.
However, this time we're talking about our players were taken by these pirates. They were captured and brought to the secret floating pirate island of Kaizoku. And Kaizoku is like very tropical. It sits like in amongst the clouds. It has a giant volcano on it. And the players were like taken through the island by the pirates, shown some of the rainforest that's there, and taken into like the volcano itself.
I mean, before that, there's, from my perspective as a player at the time, on the work you had done as a DM, that was pretty cool. Like the descriptives you had of the pirates sort of talking about the animals and the different sounds and everything. There was definitely a theater of the mind that was really nice and colorful as far as imagination of where we were going through. It felt pretty cool.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And also that's kind of what I was going for. So that's good. And we got to like the volcano. They went inside. They were taken through some hallways. And then...
Wait, I gotta jump in there as well. Because that was the highlight, dude.
What, the...
Yes, come on, man.
What, with the music and
yes.
stuff, you mean? Okay,
yes, so how many pieces of music did you have?
I had one piece of music. I had one piece of music and two sound effects going at the same time.
But all going at the same time, and the music was crescendoing. So basically it was to create the scene of almost like this pirate king who lives in insanity. Like his life is just So you had this crescendoing like musical piece.
Yeah, I had the two cellos version of Thunderstruck building, because as they entered the volcano there was music playing through the halls, like faint music, and as they walked closer it got like louder, and they could also hear like a what sounded like a waterfall of some sorts, as well as also like geysers going off. And as they approached the throne room, all of these things hit a crescendo. The music was at its loudest, the waterfall sounded really loud, and as they entered the throne room, which is like this giant cavern in this volcano, there's like a lava fall at the back that's flowing in, and there's like these statues, cool. And the throne chair is like this just rocky outcrop that's like formed, and it has like a chair carved into it and stuff. And there they got to meet Pirate King Zodiac, a character in our world who is fabled. It's not sure whether he's alive or not, whether he's a real person, but it's known that there's pirates that operate under his name. And our players were fortunate enough to be taken straight to the throne room because of something that they had. They carried a very valuable gem with them that could turn the tide for the Pirate King. So he got to do a little monologue, and I was going to do like a little monologue as him kind of talking to the players, and he had some inside information, almost like he knew a bit about them before they even showed up. And just this kind of like maniacal, like he's there faking a limp that then gets better while they're like talking, because he like straightens up and like changes personality a little bit. However, the point of this episode is that the importance of a session zero, and something that we missed massively by not doing a solid session zero, and almost like doing a drip-fed version of session zero, because I wasn't aware of session zeros when we started this campaign, and so then when we went into it, our players had some not great table etiquette of having side conversations, talking out of character a lot, like also not allowing other people to, like, when they are talking, so like giving full attention, actively listening, trying to make everyone else look good in what they're doing in their role play and things like that. And so because of that, when it came to that, and also not having set some strong rules for the table within a session zero, came to this big moment where they're meant to meet this Pirate King, and he's going to monologue and be sinister and stuff. And one of our players happened to have drank a decent amount this night, because I hadn't specified that, I don't particularly want people to be smashed while we're playing D&D and stuff. And he drank a little bit more than he could handle, and ended up being really rowdy during this bit, talking over me lots, being a bit of a nuisance, not allowing me to talk at all really as a dungeon master. And it kind of took the edge off the moment, and it meant that this big character who was about to offer them to join his ranks ended up taking a lot of the impact out of it, a lot of the sting out of this moment. And I think something that I've heard since then is, when your DM is monologuing, it's because he's about to say goodbye to the character that he's monologuing as. So let them monologue and give them an opportunity. I like it. It doesn't work for every scenario, but the point of active listening, the point of sitting at the table and listening to the other players while they're taking their turn in combat or while someone's doing some role-playing stuff is really, really important, and we didn't set those rules. So the important part of this is session zeros and making sure that before you start a campaign, whether you go and find the safety toolkit online or you read a bit about in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything about session zeros, or you just Google session zeros online, you need to include this in your prep for your campaign. You need to make sure you have a session zero, not just to introduce your players to the characters, the world, things like that, but also to set ground rules as a dungeon master, inform them what kind of style you're going to be playing, inform them table rules about, alcohol consumption, for example, and stuff like that. So it's really important that you have a session zero set up and ready to go and planned out with also, things like with the safety toolkit, triggers for people, stuff to make sure, there's sensitivity stuff in place so that you're not touching on topics that bother some of your players. It's really, really important that that's done, and we miss that beat massively. And do you know what? We have only just begun solving that issue now with this team that we are playing with. I've begun massively addressing these issues at the table and talking about it with the whole team and addressing it with individual people as well. And I think it's allowed the table to function better. They enjoy the game more. They get more out of it. Everyone participates more. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that the session zero allows for that. It allows for everyone to know where they stand and know where they can go and where they can't go. So no one's overstepping the boundaries. And if they do, they understand quickly that they may have done so and that they reel it back and things like that.
Yeah, well, that's the point to that is you may even have already introduced a session zero and you see things are slipping. Like, I think it's the
continuous communication.
Exactly. Right. And it's exactly the communication, which is even session to session, you may be seeing things as a DM or as a player where you walk away from the session and you're like here's what I'll say this. From the last session that we had, I personally think food should be addressed because to some degree everyone needs to eat. But if food becomes a distraction during gameplay, I think it needs to be addressed. So that is an example of session to session. There may be things that either A, you didn't describe or cover in session zero, or B, present themselves that are actually relevant to talk about, that are a factor in people possibly not getting the best out of that session. So there's something about if you come away from a session and you say, that was a really good session, except that, and that except that is something that happened that was outside of the actual play, role play or gameplay, it was some sort of external thing, I think that needs to be addressed. Not like in a way that it causes some sort of disruption in the team, but in a respectful way. These things can either be addressed and then create an improved situation as you go forward, or not be addressed and people just get pissed off and they're just like, you know what, this is not what it was. Yeah. And you don't want to get there.
Yeah, and I think everyone kind of wants to achieve that full immersion kind of thing. And like Tom said, so yeah, this is about, you guys need to make sure or do your utmost to get that session zero in there and cover a lot of stuff in that, cover as many rules as you can try to at the beginning, but also be brave enough to talk to your players about things that are bothering you as a dungeon master. As players, be willing to talk to your dungeon master about things that are bothering you. Be willing to talk to the other players. Again, do so with respect, care. Do it with, an understanding that we're adults playing a game together and enjoying time. Don't get me wrong, not all games involve adults, but, the one we're playing is with adults. It requires a level of respect and maturity in the game itself, because if we don't have that, then we can't approach some of the topics that, you know, involve adults, such as, you know, extreme levels of mature content with like combat, language, role play, you know, violence, you know, whatever it might be. And so I think it's important that you are open with your players, you communicate throughout the campaign, and as a DM, you're open to criticism and receiving that from your players as well. But make sure you get that session 0 in there. Make sure, because that will set the whole tone for everything going forward. It means if it does begin to slip, you can retighten that back up, and your players won't feel like it's out of left field and it's something that you're just being a dick about. Or if you don't address that and then 4 sessions in, you're like, hey, you need to stop that. It comes across a lot more like you're being a dick about it than if you don't.
And I thought what you did was really great in how you did address it. And I would recommend this as well for DMs, in that you didn't put it all on the players. You said, look, here's kind of where I am. I feel like I've dropped the ball on probably a lot of this. Like if I would have addressed some of this earlier on, it wouldn't have to be a conversation right now. So that presentation of we're all in this together, as opposed to, you know, like either as a player saying you guys all did something wrong, or as a DM saying you guys all did something wrong, as you know, you're presenting it as like I am just as at fault at this as all of us are, and I'm just trying to present something that we all get what we want out of this. We're committing like hours out of our lives to do this so that we can get these payoffs, this camaraderie, these laughs, these emotional moments. All this stuff is what we want to play for. So, you know, let's continue to, like, you know, trim this up and clean it up so that we can do that. And I thought you did that really well as far as how you presented it.
And for sure, and I think something else is, as a dungeon master, if you've got new players, you know, at some point these players might not play in your game. They might play in someone else's game. So you want to prepare them best to enter someone else's game respectfully, you know, with good roleplay ethics, good table ethics, you know, all that kind of stuff, so that you're doing that. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't fall solely on the DM to teach people that kind of stuff. It falls on the players to go and learn in their spare time. But I also feel like, as a dungeon master, I have a lot of new players, people who haven't played before, and before playing with us. And it's my job to kind of be like, hey, cool guys, let's try first-person roleplay today. As opposed to in the past where we've been like, you know, my character Mason going like, oh, Mason walks over and does this. Let's go, I walk over and do this, you know. And it just changes the dynamic. And by slowly, you know, going, guys, let's give this a try today. I'm not sure if you guys are down for it. How does the table feel about that? If the team is down, if everyone's game for giving that a try, then it may enhance their gameplay, it may make it better, it may make it worse. It's something that you can evolve and structure your table the way you want it to be. Streams are very different, and it's something that we'll definitely talk about in a later episode, about the difference between a family group and a streaming group. But yeah, I think the main point here, guys, is communicate with your players, and that starts at session 0, but doesn't end at session 0. It continues past that. So yeah. Other than that, this has been Homie and the Dude, the father and son podcast. Thank you so much for watching this episode of D&D Diaries, and we'll see you guys in the next one, where we will be talking about the pirate arena, where Zodiac offered an ultimatum: either fight for your freedom or work for me. Ooh. And we'll talk about that in the next one, guys. Look forward to talking to you then. We're chugging through. We're loving doing this stuff for you guys. If you want to support us, if you want to make sure that we can keep getting, you know, better quality set, better quality lights, make the filming better.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Yes!
You know, all that kind of stuff. You can do that by just liking, following the page, and subscribing to the YouTube channel. That is what really makes a difference to us.